and today I want to talk about, principally about Boris Johnson, but also I'd like to talk a little bit about the gas crisis. If you approve of what I'm saying and you don't mind, I'd be most grateful if you could like and subscribe. So I think I realised that Boris Johnson's coming to the end of the road. I think he's had a very good run, but I think it's coming to an end. I don't think he's going to be around very much longer as our Prime Minister. This became very clear, I thought, during this visit to America this week. You know how you see just pictures, images that suddenly make you realise that something is not quite as you thought it was. You see this in people you might be talking to. If somebody's maybe telling you a lie or something, there's just a little give, a little what is it they call a little there's some expression they have in poker, isn't it? But some way anyway of knowing that things are not really as they appear. And I saw this in Johnson this week. There were one or two images. I mean, there was one where he was sat next to Biden in the Oval Office. He was the only one in the room without a mask on. But anyway, you could see, if you look at this image, you could see defeat in his eyes. He knows the game is up. I am absolutely certain he knows it's all over. He knows this has all been a deception, this whole Brexit thing. He's never believed in it. It's all been about his own career. And I think he knows now he's got so many problems that he's just cannot survive. There was another image which we saw also at the G7 back in in Cornwall a couple of months ago. There was this image in the White House again with Biden with his arm around Johnson and his hand on his shoulder, and it just said all over it, "Look, I'm in charge. You're nobody. You're just a boy." And Johnson looked very uncomfortable. He wasn't in command. He knew he wasn't in command. He knows that really going over there as a Prime Minister of Great Britain is not the same as when he was going over as a spokesman for the whole of the EU. We don't have any clout anymore, and he knows that. And also he knows the whole world can see what's going on in this country, and everything is falling to pieces, and how badly the economy is doing, and how many problems we've got, and so on. And the third thing that made me think it's really all over was when you saw Johnson being interviewed in front of the Capitol towards the end of his visit. And we all know this business with the submarines, whereby the US, Australia and we got together to help Australia build these 3 new submarines, and consequently Australia cancelled this huge contract for what was supposed to be 90 billion euros with France, without giving much notice, and how absolutely furious the French were, quite rightly so, I think. And so Johnson, outside the Capitol, said, with extreme misjudgment, he said nonsense about our dearest friends and so on, and then he started using franglais by talking about donnez-moi un break and prenez la grip, give me a break and get a grip. Clearly aimed at Macron, clearly aimed to insult the person who's lost out in this deal, and it seems so badly judged, so stupid, and just made him look so pathetic with his ruffled hair and his ill-fitting suit. And this man is now, he's a loser. He's been a winner all his life. He's now a loser, and more people are going to realise this. He's got a absolutely useless government. I mean, for example, George Eustace on television said at the time when Johnson was just about to walk into Biden's office, he said he didn't think Biden really understood the Northern Ireland Protocol. He probably got his information from newspaper headlines. I mean, really? And what came out of this visit to America? Well, there was a lot of crowing about from Downing Street about how we'd managed to be one of the 32 countries that were now allowed to fly to the United States, providing we're double jabbed. And that was kind of given as Johnson's great triumph, that the Brits can now fly to America alongside the whole of the EU, China, and all sorts of other countries. So it wasn't a victory. Then there was Biden announcing he was going to give all this money to fight global change. Well, he was going to do that anyway. That was nothing to do with any persuasion from Boris. It was announced, Johnson rather. It was announced before he even got there. And then there's the trade deal. Well, apparently the Americans are going to import our lamb. This is the first time for 2 decades that we've been able to export lamb to America. This is a great deal, great deal. 2 months ago, we were getting extremely excited because, Liz Truss was almost wetting herself with excitement about this Australian deal, whereby we're going to import lamb from Australia. So, with these 2 wonderful deals, just about the only 2 deals we've done, we are going to import lamb from Australia and we're going to export lamb to America. Now, I got a very good suggestion here. Why don't we give the Australian exporters of lamb the address of the American importers and then just send it direct? Save us a lot of paperwork. So anyway, Johnson knows that when he gets back, and I mean, this is a guy who doesn't like paperwork, he doesn't like routine, he likes being in factories, wearing high vis and so on, he likes being on the stage. That's why he was so keen to go to America, so he could show off and grandstand in front of everybody. He knows that when he gets back, he's got the problem with the shortages of this, that and the other. He knows he's got the problem with, at the end of this month, there's going to be a terrific fuss about the ending of the universal credit uplift. There's going to be increases in national insurance for poorer people, or for everybody, but particularly it's going to hit poorer people worse. They're going to be, we can all see that prices are going up in the shops, the shortages in the shops. Prices are never going to come down, they're just going to go up and up and up. And then on top of all this, of course, there's been the gas and the gas crisis. And this was something I wanted to have a look at in a bit more detail, because whilst you can say that the pandemic has nothing to do with Brexit, you can also say the gas has nothing to do with Brexit whatsoever. But because of Brexit, and because we've now become so weak as a result of Brexit, because we're so vulnerable, all these things, the pandemic and the shortage of gas, is so much more serious for us than it is for economies that are doing better. So we all know the story with the gas, that the market was opened up and all these chancellors came in and thought they could buy gas and sell it and make a few quid, and a lot of them didn't reckon that gas might go up in price, and therefore they didn't hedge and they didn't buy in advance and so on. So they were left with their pants down, and a lot of them have gone bust, and probably more will go bust. And we're going to be left with 6 major gas suppliers, all huge companies. So I had a look at these 6 companies, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about them because it's quite interesting. The biggest company of all is British Gas. It's obviously a huge British company, owns all sorts of things, and it's probably, as far as I know, it's probably a very well run, very profitable and very successful company. No problem there. Second biggest power company is EDF, Electricité de France. And they're going to be supplying our electricity in future because they're, or a lot of it, because they're building Hinkley Point with the Chinese. So between them, they're going to be making lots and lots of money out of selling us very expensive electricity. But EDF is owned 85% by the French government. So if you get your electricity or your gas from EDF, any profits that are made go to the French state. Now, the third biggest power company, gas company, is E.ON. E.ON belongs to the Germans. We've sold it to the Germans. It's 41% Germany, 31% other EU countries, and the rest, I don't know where it is. It's probably China, and who knows. The fourth biggest company is npower. And npower, like E.ON, belongs to the Germans. It's a German company. fifth biggest is Scottish Power. Good old bonny Scotland. Now that doesn't belong to Germans, it doesn't belong to the French. Oh no, no. That belongs to the Spanish. They own that. And the sixth is SSE, which is a British company. Now all these companies, these foreign companies that own these utilities, and all the profit that is made goes back to their countries. In the case of EDF, it goes back to the French state. So we've sold all these things off, and we're really in their hands. We've got regulators and we can fix prices to a certain extent. But if you're EDF, or if you're one of these German companies, where are your priorities going to be? When there's a shortage of gas, I mean, which customers are you going to look after? Your own customers at home, where all your shareholders are? Or are you going to look after British customers? You know, it's like you've got a house. It's got 3 floors, ground floor, first floor, second floor. And you decide, I'd like a new car and I'd like a few holidays and I'd like to do this and I'd like to do that. So I'll sell the top floor. So you sell it, and you sell it to some Dutchman, or let's say a Dutchman. He takes it over, doesn't live in this country, he takes it over, he finds a tenant, puts a tenant in, he doesn't want spending money on maintenance and looking after the rest of it. He'll do whatever he has to do in order to keep it legally sound and so on. But he's off, he's gone. He's back in Holland, making the money. In the meantime, you can buy your new car, you can have your holidays and so on, and spend all the money and have a good time. Then a couple of years down the road, you say to yourself, I don't like working full time. I think I want to take a bit of time off and could do with another holiday. I'll sell the first floor. And so you sell the first floor to a Frenchman. Like the Dutchman, he comes over and he finds some tenants, sticks them in your house, and doesn't really want to do anything, doesn't want to do any maintenance, doesn't want anything to do with it really. He's going to go back to France and just wait for the money to come in. And so where do you end up? You end up owning a third of a house. You've got people above you who are foreigners making lots of money out of the rent. You spent your money. How smart is that? And that's what happened with all our utilities. And that is why it is all so stupid. It has all been so stupid and so irresponsible. I have nothing against privatisation. I think generally speaking, private companies run businesses better than civil servants do. But you have to regulate, you have to control where ownership is to a certain extent. You can't just sell everything off to foreigners, because in the end you end up with nothing. You end up with the ground floor. Other people have got everything else. This is happening not only in utilities, in the public sector, it's happening throughout our businesses, throughout the country. One thing after another is being sold off. But let me return to the utilities, because there are some other interesting things to say about them. Let's take the water company. 71% of the water companies in this country are foreign owned. I'll give you a few examples. Northumbria Water. 80% of that belongs to a firm called Chung Kong Group. And they're based in a place I've never heard of, no idea where. It's a place called the Cayman Islands. Presumably they're somewhere off Northumberland, are they? I don't know. South Trent, United and Southwest Water, they all belong to BlackRock, which is an enormous American venture capital hedge fund organisation. York Water is 50% owned by the Germans, 50% owned by another American equity company. Wessex is owned by the Malaysians. Thames Water. Now, Thames Water is really interesting. This is the organisation that supplies all the water for the whole of London, Thames Water. That's owned jointly by the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, China, and Australia. Isn't that nice? All these different countries. And so when your water rates are going up every year to the maximum permitted, it's in order to make money to send all around the world. I think it's something to do with taking back control, isn't it? But the classic, the absolute classic, is the railways. Now, the Labour Party want the railways to be state-controlled. Well, they are state-controlled. Let me just read you a list to tell you which states are controlling them. C2C, which is a railway in Essex, I think, that's the Italian state own that. Chilterns, that belongs to the German state. Cross Country is a German state. East Midlands is a Dutch state. Eurostar is a French state. Gatwick Express, French state. Grand Central, I don't know where that is, German state. Great Northern, French state. Greater Anglia, Dutch state. London North Western Railway, Dutch state. London Overground, German state. Merseyrail, Dutch state. Northern, German state. ScotRail, Dutch state. South West Railway, oh, different one here, Hong Kong, they own that. South Eastern, French state. Southern, French state. Stansted Express, that's that very expensive railway to get you to Stansted. That's owned by the Dutch. TfL Rail, I'm not sure quite what that is actually, but then that's Hong Kong. Thameslink, French state. Transport for Wales, French state. West Coast, that's recently been taken over by the Italian state railway running that. And West Midlands Railway is Dutch. So what we've done is just sold everything off, and we keep sending off more and more, making us more and more vulnerable, and making us poorer and poorer. We get a lump sum in, and then that's the end of it. From then on, all the revenues from all these railways, water companies, electricity companies, gas companies are just pouring abroad. All the dividends, and any commercial organisation wants us to make more profits, so they can pay more dividends. It's nuts. But as I say, it's not only the utilities, it's not only public companies. If you look at, well, they're not public companies anymore, but if you look at this business with the gas last week, now there's this company, CF Industrial, they're based in Dearborn in Illinois. They own these two factories that make fertilisers, and as a byproduct they make CO2. Now, I never knew, and I suppose a lot of people wouldn't have known how important CO2 is, but it seems it's very important for all sorts of industries. Now, I'm sure CF Industries is a honest, decent and well-run company, I have no doubt about it. But imagine you're in a position where you're in your boardroom in Illinois, and you know that you're supplying 60% of the UK's CO2, and there's a huge crisis, and that if they can't get any CO2, they're going to be in big trouble. Aren't you going to be tempted to take advantage of that situation? So what we had was Kwasi Kwarteng, man with no business experience in his life, worked in the city before he became a politician, rushing around telling everybody he worked on, he had meetings on Sunday. So that's how seriously he took it. Rushing around, and eventually came up with a deal whereby we paid CF Industrial £50 million to keep the factory going for another 3 weeks. What happens after 3 weeks? Nobody knows. Maybe CF Industrial, if we haven't found some CO2 from somewhere else, maybe they'll say, yes, we'll carry on for another 3 weeks, but might be a bit more expensive. It costs more than we thought. We might need 75 million. So taxpayers' money is going to an American company to keep producing CO2, which we rely upon. And this is how we've weakened our economy, how vulnerable we are. I made a video last week about China and about how they're going to be buying all our businesses, or so many businesses and land and property and so on. They're going to be coming like vultures to see what they can pick off the carcass of what was once a significant economy, which is just deteriorating by the day. And I think this is terribly worrying. I mean, I think this once you get momentum, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about an individual, you're talking about a football team, you're talking about a fashion, you're talking about a company, you're talking about a whole country. You get momentum in one direction or another. That momentum generates confidence, and the confidence generates more momentum. And so you get, for example, I mentioned about China, how because they've done so well, they've got this momentum going, they've got this confidence, and they believe they can conquer the world. And I think here it's the absolute opposite. You can see how, just talking to people, nobody's got any confidence. Everybody's worried. Everybody's terrified. Have you seen the price of petrol? Have you seen the empty shelves in Tesco's? Shortage of staff in care homes. We know. I don't have to go through them all. We know all the problems that there are. But there is this sense of, where are we going? How's it going to end? And that lack of confidence, that downward momentum is self-fulfilling. And I'm really concerned about where this will all end up. And at the same time, we've got a government of just utter incompetence. Have you ever seen such an incompetent government? Absolutely no idea what to do. And going back to Johnson, I mean, the only people who will ever get rid of him, of course, are Conservative MPs. But I think a lot of these Conservative MPs are going to go back to their constituencies, and they're going to find queues and queues of people coming in to tell them that they can't afford to pay their rent, and they can't afford this, they can't afford that, or they've lost their jobs or lost their businesses and so on. And I think when they start to see that this is going to affect whether or not they get re-elected, they are going to start turning against Boris Johnson. And I think not long after that, the press will turn against him. And I think that's from then on, it's just a downhill until eventually he is, they send enough letters into the 1922 committee and have another election for leader of the Conservative Party. I don't suppose that's going to help very much, because the people who will elect the next leader will be Conservative Party members, and who knows who they're going to choose. But for me, to return to what I started saying, I think Johnson I think his time is up, and I think he knows it. I think everything about that visit to America told you that he knows it. We're in just too much mess. Shakespeare has a wonderful quote from Hamlet, which he says, troubles come not as single spies, they come in battalions. And my gosh, Johnson's got battalions and battalions of problems. Most of them are very, very difficult to solve, and almost all of them as a result of the self-inflicted catastrophe of Brexit. So it's going to be very interesting, and we'll see what happens at the end of this month or beginning of October. But if you watched this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll finish there and say until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.